Hello everyone and welcome to edsautoreviews World Tour. Since I've just been released from my North Korean prison, I'm ready to roam the world again. These 5 episodes are all about visiting countries that are not Japan, the US or a well-known European country, and shine a light on the history of this country's car industry. And this is destination number 1.
Well, this sucks.
Well, it does, because let's get the clickbait out of the way. There is no car industry on Antarctica. What do you expect? And that leaves us with another question. Are there any cars or vehicles on Antarctica? Can you drive on Antarctica? Are there any traffic rules? Welcome everyone to episode 24 of the Automotive History series, where I'm slowly sliding on thin ice to find out the answers for you. The first discovery and landing on Antarctica was in a time when the car wasn't even invented yet. Around 1820, several expeditions claimed to be the first to set foot on the giant ice continent, although it would still take an additional 50 years before the first concept of what we now call cars were invented. Throughout time, between the first expedition and the present day, many countries all over the world have either claimed pieces of Antarctica or otherwise built their own research stations. Many of these claims are disputed, but let's not get too much into the details here. Instead, it's good to know that Antarctica is not completely uninhabited, as there are several research stations located on the edges. Some of these stations are small and some are a bit bigger. How do people get around town? Well, mostly through transportation not related to cars. On a good day, ships provide equipment, rations, and people, and Antarctica is home to some 20 airports, albeit rather crude ones. Don't expect duty-free shops. Because let's face it, Antarctica is one of the least favorable locations your car wants to be in. To give you an idea, first, there is the incessant cold. You don't like cold weather, I don't like cold weather, and so does your car. A nice hot summer's day is around minus 30 degrees Celsius, and the coldest temperatures are around minus 60 degrees Celsius. For reference, cars start to suffer a multitude of problems at temperatures of around minus 40 degrees, either Celsius or Fahrenheit. Think of thickening oil, risk of dying batteries, and frozen fuel lines. And then there is the rough terrain, crevices, ravines, mountains, uneven and rough terrain. Along the coast, treacherous thin layers of ice. You're either getting stuck in the snow or spin out on the ice plains. And then there is the wind. If it wasn't for the cold, it's the ever-present wind that continuously blows at speed of some 160 kilometers or 100 miles per hour. One source notes that a car door was even blown out of its hinges and actually dented the front fender. And where are you going to drive anyway? Roads rarely exist. You may be proud of yourself that you single-handedly dug a perfect road, only to find out it has been covered by snow the next day. It's an uphill battle. Still, this didn't keep people from trying. Here is an overview. Before cars, mostly our own 2 feet, and huskies were the main mode of transportation. Horses were pretty useless because of the temperature and are too heavy for the snow. But huskies will do fine. One of the first attempts to joyride on the never-ending ice plateaus was around 1907. A man named Ernest Shackleton was appointed to lead a British expedition to the South Pole and chose to introduce motor traffic to the local penguin population by taking a 1907 Errol Johnston along with him. The Errol Johnston was a 12 to 15 horsepower air-cooled and alcohol-fueled car that was going to be the billboard for the up-and-coming Scottish car industry. The car was given away for free as a promotional stunt. Because, hey, this was downright cheating. Polar exploration made easy. Get to the coast, fire up the engine, drive to the South Pole, plant a flag, and get home before tea time. How hard could it be? Quite hard actually, because if today's cars are suffering in these conditions, imagine a car from 1907. Now, the Errol Johnston already had the credentials as being the first off-road car in the world before hitting the ice, but it was a disaster. The car was in no way prepared for Arctic driving. It still had normal tires, which were rubbish even in normal conditions. Eventually, the car was used for just driving as far as possible until getting stuck again and then turning back to the ship, and the rest of the men would continue on foot. Funnily enough, the engine did overheat a couple times during the trip, which is, kind of an achievement. In the late 1920s, there was another attempt to introduce motor cars on the icy continent. The second Wilkins-Hurst expedition of 1929 took an Austin 7 that reportedly had 8 wheels and chains, but not much more is known about it. As it turns out, cars on Antarctica was a slippery slope, and the idea was frozen for a couple decades. Until, look at that, there they are, the Americans showed up. And in traditional American fashion, it was go big or go home. Introducing the giant Antarctic snow cruiser. Now, I could tell you all about it, but the YouTube channel Mustard did an excellent video with terrific visuals on it, so I highly recommend you to watch it instead of the trash videos I make. But to keep it short, almost everything the snow cruiser was designed for, mainly to combat and really conquer the icy terrain, worked against it. It did not have proper tires, and the uneven weight distribution wasn't really helping either. Researchers eventually parked it and turned it into a mobile research station. Once again, Antarctica showed that it could even get the biggest machines on its knees. So let's try the humble approach. By the early 60s, it was Australia's try to make penguins get behind the wheel. Much the same way as the Errol Johnston story, a man named Roy McMahon was appointed to lead an Australian Arctic expedition. He was given the freedom to pick a car for driving around Mawson Station, and he turned to Volkswagen to ask for a free car. V-dubs agreed, thinking it might be good effort for PR purposes. And it was. McMahon received a ruby red Beetle, conveniently chosen so it would stick out in a wide environment, and was immediately nicknamed the Red Terror, and rightfully so. As it turned out, the car was a terrific choice. The car took the barren landscape effortlessly. And here's the deal. It wasn't even modified for off-road purposes. It was a standard red Beetle with Northern European tires and some slight modifications to the engine. No extra heaters, no jacked-up suspension, no nothing. The only thing it got were custom license plates, and the car was nicknamed Antarctica 1. Why? Out of all cars available at the time, a Beetle. Why always a friggin' Beetle? What makes these cars so special? I mean, wouldn't, a Range Rover not be a better option? Well, not really, as the Beetle unintentionally had some tricks up its sleeve. First, the car is lightweight, and weight is your enemy in these conditions, or more like a trade-off. A heavy Land Rover, almost twice the weight of a Beetle, has better traction, but a lighter Beetle is easier to steer and handle. And what it lacks in traction makes up for being rather light to push out of the snow, if it even got the chance to get stuck at all. Also, Beetles were renowned for the very tight fit and finish. It was always tightly sealed, so no snow could enter the interior, and you could keep yourself somewhat warm inside. But the biggest advantage is the air-cooled engine, because, well, where are you going to find the best dry cold air in the world? Right. There was no coolant that could freeze. And lastly, it's a Beetle, renowned for being reliable, but above all, very easy to work on, which comes in handy when you only have a certain amount of parts available at the station, and the closest body shop is on New Zealand, some 4,000 kilometers away. The researchers praised the car for always being ready with just a bit of maintenance and petrol. After a full year of playing in the snow, the Beetle got replaced by, guess what, another Beetle, nicknamed the Antarctica 2. The Antarctica 1 was sent back to Australia. And you guessed that it would either end up in a museum or being used and abused wherever possible by VW marketing team, but no. They used the car for the 1964 BP Australia Rally, and guess what? The car ended up in first place. Truly remarkable. So, as it turns out, driving a car on Antarctica is possible. And it really doesn't have to be a huge monster when a little red bug is all you need. Take that, Americans. And as time moved on, so did the technological advancements. Currently, one of the largest stations on Antarctica is the American McMurdo Station, big enough that you need a car-like vehicle to drive around the base and the surrounding area. What is the preferred vehicle of choice? Oddly enough, not pickups or SUVs, but vans. On McMurdo, people are being carried around in late-model Ford E-Series vans. These vans can range from mildly customized with a fireplace and a waterbed and a drink... wrong episode. These vans can range from mildly customized with 4x4 setup to the so-called Ice Challenger, a 1996 Ford E-Series van with a 6x6 setup, 3.7-liter turbocharged diesel V8, air suspension, GPS communication, and a 20-speed transmission. It was determined to beat the so-called land speed record of reaching the South Pole from the coast of Antarctica. The van managed to do it in just under 70 hours of non-stop continuous driving. The old record was 24 days. Now, this van was specifically made for getting into the deep part of Antarctica. But as mentioned before, the normal E-Series vans are used to get around the base. Well, what if all the vans are taken? Introducing Ivan, the Terra Bus. This beast is nothing more than a city bus but made ready for anything but the city. It's a jacked-up bus that ferries researchers from the airport into McMurdo Station. It sits on a 6x6 setup with big, low-pressure tires. The bus is made by a Canadian company called Foremost, and they are not Antarctica exclusive. These so-called snow coaches are also used around touristy glaciers and high-altitude mountainous areas, such as in Canada. Foremost not only makes buses, but also a lot of other heavy-duty equipment for the Arctic. And that's what I want to end with. In reality, the car industry, or really the vehicles on Antarctica, is not so magical or sexy. Most vehicles aren't even cars, but a fine selection of heavy-duty equipment. Think of snowmobiles, heavy-duty machinery, snowplows, tractors, bulldozers, and snow coaches. Much of these machines are old, but not useless. In fact, they are quite useful, as they require a minimum of maintenance since they are rather simple in their design. It does not have to be cutting-edge technology. It just needs to work. Alright, I'm getting cold, and I'm going to hop on the Ivan the Terra bus, hit the airport, and take a flight to my next destination. Hopefully, where it's a bit warmer. You'll see.